Hi everybody, Kaiwaza with you, and welcome back to my channel. We are continuing my journey through my Hawaiian record collection, record by record. We are on the letter N. Today I think it's going to be a somewhat shorter video because we are winding up the letter N, and today I'm presenting both my Exotica records and my South Pacific records that would be filed under the letter N, and I actually have very few that happen to fall under the letter N. There's hardly any, so I don't think this is going to be a really long video, but let's just forge ahead and then we'll draw and see what letter comes up next. So Exotica records. Now believe it or not, I only have one Exotica record that is filed under the letter N, and that is by the Jimmy Namaro Trio. Somewhat sought after album, this one. It's called Driftwood. This is Jimmy Namaro right there. And he is a Spanish-American descent, but actually Canadian, born and raised in Canada. And this album is, yeah, it's like jazz slash exotica. A couple of the songs, Driftwood and Tahiti Boat, actually have some steel guitar in them. The other songs are all just sort of the standard, you know, xylophone kind of exotica instruments. It's a nice album. I enjoy it, and yeah, it seems to be kind of expensive when you see it, and a lot of people seem to be looking for it. It is on Dot Records. Now we head into, that's it for Exotica under the letter N, believe it or not. Now I have 4 records filed under South Pacific music, and that being music from the other Pacific islands other than Hawaii. And I have 4. The first one is the most interesting one. It's a to me, it's one of the more interesting albums I have, just because I was so surprised to find it. I didn't know it existed until I saw it, I think on eBay. And it's just weird conceptually, but I really love it. I love easy listening music, lounge music. One of the bands that I enjoy following from that era are Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. And what I really love about them is the many imitators that sprang up. All the budget labels and all the regular major record labels, everybody was doing some sort of imitation Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass album, like the Guadalajara Brass and the Mexicali Brass and the you know, whatever, you know, any kind of brass you can imagine they were coming up with. I didn't know, but it happened in New Zealand as well. And we have this album here on EMI from 1968, I believe is the date, 1968. Definitely a kickback to Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. This is Nicholson and the Neketini Brass. Yeah, it's all, there's some tiki action going on in the back here. These are all New Zealand, Maori New Zealand native songs done in the style of like the Tijuana Brass. It's amazing. Interesting stuff. Who knew? Now these next 2 albums come under there are a lot of similar albums that will come through when we go to South Pacific Records. And these are the New Zealand Maori choral groups, because there seem to be a lot of them. This is one, New Zealand Maori Concert Party. on High Fidelity Pye, Pye, and yeah, sponsored by the Auckland Public Relations Office and the New Zealand Travel and Holiday Association. So these are all just Maori songs, New Zealand native songs sung in choral groups. There are a lot of albums like this, like St. Joseph's Girls Choir, and there's a whole bunch of them. Apparently at some point in time there were a number of large Maori choral ensembles traveling around the world performing and being recorded all over the place. And this is one such album. Most of these records, these choral New Zealand records, tend to have most of the same songs on them as well. Certain, chestnuts. This is another one. New Zealand Maori Theatre World Tour. And Alan Barker, musical director, FSR Records. This doesn't have a date on it, but it appears to be a little bit later. I might peg it at the late 60s or early 70s. I think a lot of Maori songs are really pretty, really beautiful music, but I will say, I know people make the criticism of Hawaiian music sometimes that, if you have one record, you have them all, or they're all kind of similar. And I understand where they're coming from, although I really disagree with that with Hawaiian music, but I understand what they mean. I guess being an outsider, I kind of feel that way about a lot of Maori songs. They're not Maori songs by different artists, but these choral groups that there's so many albums by, they do seem to me to be, very similar. It's like if you have a couple, you really, you don't need more. I don't buy them anymore unless they're only like $1 if I see them somewhere, because they are, it's beautiful music, but they're all just so similar. They're very similar. Finally, this record here is Fijian, and I got this one. I remember getting this one when I was quite young. My grandfather and I used to get these things in the mail in the 70s from something, not Publishers Central Clearinghouse, but it was called Publishers Central Bureau or something like that. And they had like overstocks of records and books, things like that, that you could buy really cheap. And they would have Hawaiian music in their records, and my grandfather and I both bought many things, several, for the 5-6 years there they were doing those things. This was one I remember getting when I was probably in junior high school, and I was curious because I'd never really heard Fijian music at that time. I didn't know what it was like. I knew it was Pacific Islands, but I didn't know, so I remember getting this record just to see what it would be like, and it was quite different than Hawaiian music, but I do like it. And this album I like. The group is called I suppose there are many ways you could say the name of this group. I'm not sure. Nakamakama villagers, or the Namaka, Nakamakama, or Nakamakama, or Nakamakama. I don't know how where the emphasis is supposed to be. If it was a Hawaiian word, you usually put the emphasis on the second to the last syllable, but I have no idea in Fijian. And these are all just traditional kind of Fijian songs. Something I'll say about Fijian records too, which is interesting, and I don't know the story, but I like it, which is that Hawaiian records sort of have a tradition of always having a very glamorized Hawaiian woman, and and Tahitian records as well. Tahitian records are always like half naked on them. That's the thing, women on the covers. A lot of Fijian records actually have men on them, which I find really interesting. I don't know whether they sort of eroticize the men more in Fiji or what, but quite a few of the Fijian albums actually have men in various stages of undress on them. This guy's more clothed than most of them. Okay, that is the extent of my Exotica and South Pacific records under the letter N. So that means we're done with the letter N. Yay! And it's time to draw to see what letter we will do next. So I have my list here of the letters we've covered. We're getting down there. We are getting down there, folks. So I always draw the letter from whatever book I happen to be reading, which right now is the Musalmans, or Muslims, of India, written by this woman in the 1800s who married this Muslim, a gentleman in India, and she lived amongst, she's a British lady, lived amongst these Muslim families and society in India, and wrote this really fascinating book in the 1800s about the society and the culture and everything in the Muslim society of India. Fascinating. Anyway, let's see what letter we will go to next. And if it's a letter we already have, I'm just going to keep going until we reach the letter that we have not covered. T. We have not done T. Okay, so next video we start on the letter T. Oh, happy day. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.